In this video, we are going to travel from Florida to upstate New York as we start to film our major videos, the fall colors of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Perhaps give you some ideas for your next road trip up north. We are going to show you Jacksonville, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, a great bike route in Roanoake Rapids. We'll then explore Richmond, Virginia, up to our nation's capital, to a mall where there is no shopping but plenty of inspiration. We then travel north to Wilmington, Delaware, and then to a city that used to be our nation's capital, the city of brotherly love. Well, at least that's what they say, Philadelphia. We then head along the northeast corridor, passing Newark and New York, and then travel north to the Catskills, up to Poughkeepsie, New York. Because we have to move fast, we won't do the full features like we normally do on the cities, but we'll show you some of the city and the rest areas along the way and give you some hotel info and tips if you are traveling north in the eastern U.S. So hop in the Yukon with us as we leave the Sub Tropics of Florida and head to the fall colors of upstate New York. We have 1,400 miles to go, so let's get started. We start our journey from the west coast of Florida, Tampa, a city pretty happy celebrating its second Stanley Cup championship this morning. On to I-95, a gorgeous morning in Tampa Bay. I-75 is not the most exciting of interstates, pretty flat, but it moves pretty good for the most part. We cross over I-4. You can take I-4 to Jacksonville, but then you have to go through Orlando, so while the distance is about the same, the time is much longer. So we take I-75 to Ocala, then travel up 301. Florida has great rest areas, always clean. We like the Marion County rest area, which is about 90 miles north of Tampa. A great place to stretch out. Nice picnic areas, good vending machines, even gourmet coffee and ice cream. You start to see a little bit of traffic around Ocala and Gainesville. Other than that, I-75 typically moves pretty good all the way to Atlanta. But we are going to cut off here at Highway 27 and get on US 301 north. 301 takes you across some inland towns of Florida, and although a few lights, it moves pretty good as well. Just be careful around the little town of Waldo. It's a speed trap. You want to make sure you are at least within 5 miles of the speed limit. You also pass through the town of Stark, where all the bad boys go, home of death row and the Florida State Prison. Used to have the electric chair, but I think they do lethal injection now. Anyways, north of Stark, it really starts to move. You stay on alternate 301. It's a newer section of 301 that brings you straight to I-10. You can move a little faster around here. We catch I-10 about 20 miles west of Jacksonville. I-10 is the fourth longest interstate in the country, running from Santa Monica to Jacksonville. We are going to briefly head south one exit so that we can show you the most beautiful part of downtown Jacksonville, along the St. Johns River, one of only a few rivers in North America that flows from south to north. We talked about this pedestrian bike path being built in our video of Jacksonville about 5 months ago. The bike path is coming right along, expected to open later this year. We filmed Jacksonville right during the COVID lockdown in Florida in April. There's much more traffic now. We will come back in 2021 and do a full feature of this great Florida city. But for now, let's head north. We want to try to beat the rain in Savannah. I-95 runs over 1,900 miles from Miami to Maine, ending at the Canada border. We'll take it to around New York City, and then pick it back up again in our video of Maine. Well, as soon as we left the Sunshine State, we lost the sun. By the time we hit Savannah, it was raining. So we'll try to film it on our return trip in 3 weeks. It rained pretty good all the way up to Fayetteville, North Carolina. So we'll have to show you that part of the interstate on the way back. We stayed at the Super 8 in Dunn, North Carolina, which is about 20 minutes north of Fayetteville. It was right off the interstate. Dog friendly, pretty decent. Back on I-95, you can see the Days Inn across the interstate. I-95 in this northern part of North Carolina starts to get more scenery, more trees. It gets even better in Virginia. We get our morning vanilla latte at Dunkin' Donuts in Selma, North Carolina. Ever since Indianapolis, Bella has started to drink coffee. Well, what we do is I let her lick each of my fingers after I've dipped it into the coffee. She loves it. It's become our morning ritual. So Rocky Mount sounds like a cool name for a town, right? I'd figured there'd be a mountain. No mountain as far as I can see, but it does have nice brick architecture. A beautiful, quaint downtown. Seems like a great place to live. Forbes ranked the city as number 6 for best small places for businesses and careers in 2018. I love the cities that have a railroad that runs straight through the middle of town. Just 4 miles north of the Rocky Mount exit is the Nash County Rest Area. A good clean area with vending machines. Lots of trees, shaded pavilions. Bella says the grass has a very rich smell. Next up on our point of interest is Roanoke Rapids. Okay, so Rocky Mount had no mountain. There better be rapids in Roanoke Rapids. So we figured we would take the Roanoke Rapids Canal Trail. We start at the Canal Museum where you can learn about the canal's history. This trail is a 7.8-mile trail that runs along the Roanoke River. The trail runs from Roanoke Rapids to Weldon and follows one of the country's most impressive and best preserved early 19th century canals. It's a good solid dirt path, easy to ride, great scenery. So we found this overlook and voila, there it was, the rapids. Time to get back on the road and head to Virginia. Virginia doesn't call itself a state but a commonwealth. At the border is another nice rest area. You start to see more trees here. The rest areas in Virginia have these love block letters, make great backgrounds for photos. Inside an ATM as well as vending machines to get some cash for the turnpikes coming. Also a welcome center with plenty of information on what to do in Virginia. Radar detectors are illegal in this state, so I'll unplug mine here. I got a ticket for that on a trip here 5 years ago. The Highway Patrol, I believe, used technology that can spot radar detectors, unless you have a jammer. Richmond is the capital of Virginia. It is one of the oldest cities in the country, in fact, older than our country. Incorporated in 1742, it was the settlers who landed in Jamestown who established Richmond. It's the 4th most populated city in Virginia. I found that surprising. I wonder what the top 3 cities are. Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty or give me death" was said here in 1775 at St. John's Church. There's lots of good Civil War and Revolutionary War history here, not only in Richmond but all of Virginia. Yorktown, the location of the final battle of the Revolutionary War, is located about 60 miles east of Richmond. Nearby Williamsburg, another great colonial-era town, a must-see. We now head to our nation's capital, about 100 miles north of Richmond, another rest area just north of Richmond. I-95 becomes very scenic here. I lived here for 3 years, stationed in Quantico Marine Corps Base. Always loved the weather here. It would snow in winters, but not the constant blizzards you get further up north. A good change of seasons without the brutal winters. Although, if you want to live in Northern Virginia, you better have some money, or be working for the government. It's one of the most expensive parts of the country to live in. We take I-95 from the Capital Beltway. I love the drive into D.C. as the Washington Monument becomes visible. We crossed the Arling D. Williams Jr. Memorial Bridge. That's a new name, I think. I don't remember the bridge with that name. We are going to head straight to the Capitol Mall. Despite all the political ugliness of D.C., the Capitol Mall is still a beautiful area. A must-do. The best way to explore D.C. is by its metro light rail system, one of the best in the country. Find a hotel along one of its stops like Alexandria, then ride the metro to wherever you want to go. There is a stop right here on the Capitol Mall, the Smithsonian Station. You might have to do a lot of walking. The Capitol Mall is long, around 2 miles. It's a mile from the Capitol to the Washington Monument, then generally another mile from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial, with museums all along the side. The World War II Memorial, with a gorgeous fountain in the middle. One side is dedicated to the part of the war fought in Europe against Nazi Germany. And the other side is dedicated to the war fought in the Pacific against Japan. This is sacred ground. Also, the Vietnam Memorial is in this area. We have to go and say hi to Abe. Been about 10 years since I've seen him. We'll visit his son Robert's house in Vermont in our next video. On one side, his Gettysburg Address. On the other side, his inaugural speech. Marine One taking the president to Andrews Air Force Base. As the sun sets, time to leave D.C., trying to get in northern Maryland where there's cheaper hotels, outside of the Washington-Baltimore area. The Baltimore Harbor Tunnel. This is one of the longest tunnels I've seen. We stay at the Days Inn in Elkton, Maryland, near the Delaware border. Because I have so much equipment, I like the hotels where you can park right next to your room. While they tend to be older hotels, I'll sacrifice the fancy amenities for the convenience of easy load up and load out. This was a good hotel, clean room, and there is a Cracker Barrel, Waffle House, and Dunkin' Donuts within walking distance. Good rates and pet friendly. Your hotels in these smaller cities, you tend to get more for your money, safer areas, reasonable rates, and less crowded. Wilmington, Delaware is just about 20 miles from the Maryland border. It's mostly blue skies, but the sun is still behind the clouds. It's like it wants to break through, but just can't do it yet. That's okay. As long as we get sunshine in Philly, I'll be happy. Wilmington is the largest city in Delaware. I-95 goes right through the city, only 30 miles from Philly. Another really good rest area and welcome center as you cross into Pennsylvania. So many brochures you can pick up here, all kinds of things you can do in Pennsylvania. A pretty neat car here, filled with items that are related to the state. The Girard Point Bridge is a double-deckered cantilevered truss bridge crossing the Schuylkill River into Philly. You can see the skyline in the distance. Lincoln Financial Field, also known as The Link, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Ben Franklin Bridge crosses the Delaware River. It connects Camden, New Jersey with Philly. There's a pedestrian walkway here if you want a really great walk with a great view. The Moshulu Windjammer is a floating restaurant docked in Penn's Landing. Next to the Moshulu is the USS Olympia and USS Bakuna, which you can take a tour of. Philadelphia with many buildings that played a role in our nation's founding, like Independence Hall. Due to drone restrictions, we could not get very close. The Philadelphia City Hall was built in 1901. It was designed to be the world's tallest building, but it was surpassed during construction by the Washington Monument and Eiffel Tower. A 548-foot statue of the city's founder, William Penn, sits on top of the tower. It was the tallest structure in Philadelphia for many years, not so today. There was said to be a curse put on Philly sports teams when the skyscrapers eclipsed the William Penn statue in height. No Philly sports team would ever win a championship. But in 2008, the Phillies broke the curse, beating the Tampa Bay Rays in the World Series. Then 10 years later, the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. We head out of Philly over the Franklin Bridge into Camden, New Jersey. When traveling north, if you don't have an EZ Pass, make sure you have some cash with you, as you'll travel on turnpikes that don't accept credit cards. I-95 is now the New Jersey Turnpike towards New York City. There are plenty of service rest areas that usually have 3 to 4 fast food places, like the Woodrow Wilson service area here. Just amazing the amount of lanes. You have 3 lanes for cars, then another 3 lanes to the right for trucks. This part of the country gets pretty congested. The Newark skyline to the left off in the distance, and on the right, the skyline of New York City. We pass the Newark Airport on the left. This is where we are going to split off from I-95. Shortly after this point, I-95 will go over the George Washington Bridge into New York City. We want to avoid the craziness of the city, so we are going to take I-80 west, then head north towards upstate New York. Maybe on our return trip, we'll go through New York City. After a short bit on I-80, we take Route 17 northwest to I-87 towards Albany. I've always thought that New York City should be in New Jersey. It is more typical of the state of New Jersey, whereas the majority of the state of New York is beautiful. You start to see the mountains here and begin to see the fall colors. Yeah, now that's what I'm talking about. It's like you deal with all the congestion of the city traffic, then make the turn away from New York City, and it's like a breath of fresh air. Heading north on Route 9W as we travel towards Poughkeepsie. The Roosevelt Mid-Hudson Bridge connects Poughkeepsie with Highland. The Hudson River flows from the Adirondack Mountains from upstate New York for 315 miles down to New York City. This bridge also has a pedestrian bike path as well. The walkway on the Hudson is a 1.28-mile pedestrian bridge that gives a 360-degree view of the Catskills, 212 feet above the river. It used to be a railroad bridge, but in 2009 it was reopened as a pedestrian walkway. Downtown Poughkeepsie as the autumn sun begins to set over the Catskills. Instead of taking I-87, the quicker route, I opt for the more scenic route of Route 9, which brings you through some of the quaint small towns of upstate New York. Rhinebeck is a charming historic town nestled in New York's Hudson Valley, just east of the Hudson River. The autumn tree-lined streets with shops, outdoor dining. This is a great town to come for a weekend and stay at a bed and breakfast. Also good hiking and biking trails as well. Just north of Rhinebeck is Red Hook. Its name is supposedly derived from the red foliage on the trees. It is known as one of the best places to live in New York. There are lots of restaurants, coffee shops, parks. Many young professionals live in Red Hook. The schools are highly rated. We wanted to film Albany as well, one of the more scenic, bigger cities, but just running out of daylight. We'll also do another video on the way down, taking the more coastal route. We are Tampa Aerial Media. We shoot travel promos across the USA. For licensing or stock footage of this video, contact us at info@tampaaerialmedia.com. Coming up next, the fall colors of Vermont. Some amazing scenery. Well, from upstate New York, blessings to you wherever you may be. Thank you for traveling with us.